Hello everyone, welcome back to Weave at Brooklands on this gorgeous Wednesday afternoon. As you can see, I'm starting a new project on my 70 centimetre knitter's loom. And this is giving me an absolutely ideal opportunity to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while. Now, I've spoken at some lengths previously about winding our shuttles and why it's important to wind a nice loose thread onto your shuttle and all sorts of things like that. What I haven't mentioned before, or rather the question that I haven't answered previously, is how much yarn should you wind onto your shuttle? And that's a really, really good question. Now, I'm right at the beginning of what will be a very big project here. And there's my shuttle, ready wound and ready to go. And the yarn that I have on this shuttle is a relatively fine cotton, so it's probably more or less the equivalent of about an 8x4, although in South Africa our classifications are slightly different, but that's not important. What is important is that I haven't overwound my shuttle. Can you see? There's actually a relatively small amount of yarn on the shuttle. And it's really important that you don't ever overfill your shuttle. When you put your shuttle through the shed, as I'm going to demonstrate now, you want the shuttle to run smoothly and without any inhibitions in the shed. If your shuttle is overfull and you put your shuttle through the shed, you can feel that it's actually rubbing on the top and the bottom of the shed. Now that is creating tremendous friction on both your warp threads, top and bottom shed, and on your weft thread, which is on the shuttle. Okay, so this is just a shuttle that I picked up because it was lying to hand and it served for demonstration. This is a woolen yarn that I've got on here. If you're working on a woolen yarn and you create friction on your weft yarn in your shed through putting an overfull shuttle through your shed, you're going to find that your yarn starts to pill. Likewise, if you put a shuttle that is overfull through the shed and it creates friction on your warp yarns are going to start to rub, and you don't want that. Now, there's actually no excuse other than, dare I say, laziness on the part of the weaver. Sorry, there it is. The adding in of a new thread or changing color of the thread on your shuttle is so easy. If you do it the right way, you don't even have an end that needs to be darned in afterwards. And I have here a boat shuttle. This is a shuttle that I'm currently using on a project on my floor loom. And there's my bobbin for the shuttle. Now, if you look at the size of the bobbin, and you compare the size of the bobbin to the size of the stick shuttle, and you look at the amount of yarn that is wound onto the bobbin and the amount of yarn that is wound onto the stick shuttle, that should show you that actually it's us rigid heddle weavers who are used to working with a stick shuttle that are most likely to overfill our shuttles. On a boat shuttle, you actually can't overwind your bobbin because if your bobbin is overfull, it doesn't fit into the cavity in the boat shuttle. Why do we seem to think that it's such a good idea to wind a whole ball of yarn onto our stick shuttle just so that we don't have to go through the effort of changing a shuttle at a certain point? It doesn't make sense. The other thing that I want to point out to you, if I just move this slightly closer to the warp that I'm working with here, sorry about that, you can see that I have some really fairly small stripes of color here. Now I'm going to be replicating the color that I have in the warp in the weft as I weave up. When I have small stripes of color like this, and I'm going to only be needing a tiny amount of yarn going onto the shuttle, what I do is I actually count. So, for example, where I have the lime green, I have only 6 threads of lime green in the warp. That means that I'm only going to have 12 passes of lime green in the weft, I would take my 76 centimeter shuttle, because that's the correct width for my weaving, and I would count one length of the shuttle as 1 and the return length as 2, and then 3 and 4, 5, 6, so on, until I had 12 winds on the shuttle, and that will give me almost exactly the correct amount of yarn on there to weave a small colour pass in the weft that will match the colours that are in the warp. So just a few tips there for you. Remember, don't overfill your shuttle. It doesn't do the warp any good, and it does the weft even less good. And if you're only requiring a tiny amount of yarn for a small stripe in your weaving, actually count the number of passes of yarn that you put onto your shuttle. It makes life so much easier than spending hours and hours trying to unwind all that leftover yarn off your shuttle. Hope you found this useful. And if you did find it useful, please just give me a thumbs up and click on the subscribe button. It really helps my little channel to grow. Also, remember that there's lots more weaving information, original projects, technical studies, all sorts of things on my Patreon page. And the link to my Patreon page is just below my channel information, together with the link to my website and the link to my Facebook page as well. I'll see you next week.